He's sweating. Not from heat, from math he can't do out loud. The man crouches by a fire that isn't his, holding a string of shells that might be worth a goat, or might be worth nothing, because nobody in this camp has agreed on the exchange rate yet. 40,000 years ago, this is what commerce looks like. No coins, no wallets, no app buzzing with a payment confirmation. Just a man, a stranger's fire, and a bet that the shells in his hand will convince someone to feed him tonight. He's about to become, as far as we can tell from the archaeological record, one of the first known cheaters in the history of human trade. And the punishment isn't a fine. It's not 30 days in jail. It's something closer to a death sentence with extra steps. Here's the question worth sitting with. If there was no money, how did prehistoric humans actually pay for anything? And what really happened to the first person who tried to scam the system? Because the answer isn't, they used shells and called it a day. The answer is a chain of increasingly brutal survival mechanics. And some of those mechanics are still wired into your brain every time you check your bank app at 2 a.m. Start with the obvious assumption, the one everyone walks in with. Barter. You had a fish, I had an axe. We swapped. Everybody's happy. Economists actually love this story because it's clean. It's also almost completely made up. Anthropologists who've spent decades embedded with hunter-gatherer societies, the Nuer, the Hadza, groups whose lifestyles still echo Paleolithic conditions, kept looking for pure one-for-one barter economies and kept not finding them. What they found instead was something stranger and honestly more useful, an economy built on memory. You didn't trade a fish for an axe on the spot. You gave someone a fish and they owed you. Not a fish back necessarily, a favor, a debt. An invisible thread that connected you to them, tracked entirely in the heads of everyone in the tribe, because the tribe was maybe 30, 50, 80 people, and everyone remembered everything. This is the part that should reset how you think about ancient life. They weren't running on shells or coins. They were running on reputation, and reputation was the single most valuable asset a human being could hold. Lose it, and no amount of meat or fur could buy it back quickly. Which is exactly why cheating wasn't just risky, it was catastrophic in a way modern fraud almost never is. Picture the mechanics for a second. In a group that small, there's no anonymity. There's no new city to move to, no new identity, no changing your username. If you take food from the group and don't reciprocate the hunt, if you claim you contributed labor you never gave, everyone within a 100-person radius knows your face and knows your name by nightfall. There's a reason researchers studying small-scale societies keep landing on the same term: reputational currency. Before gold, before grain, before shells, the thing everyone was actually trading in was trust. And trust, once broken, didn't reset. It compounded against you. So what did they actually use as physical stand-ins for that trust, once groups got too big to just remember everything in their heads? This is where it gets specific, and where it stops sounding like folklore and starts sounding like forensic accounting. Around 1,000,000 years ago, at sites in places like Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found perforated Nassarius shells, tiny sea snail shells with holes deliberately punched through them, strung together, showing wear patterns consistent with being worn or handled repeatedly. These weren't decorations dropped by accident. Shells like these have been found hundreds of kilometers from any coastline, which means they traveled. Which means somebody carried them inland, traded them, passed them hand to hand across a distance no single person walked in one trip. That's not jewelry, that's a supply chain. Move forward and the objects change, but the logic doesn't. In parts of the ancient world, cattle functioned as a walking, breathing bank account. The word for money in several ancient languages literally derives from words for cattle. Grain functioned as currency in early Mesopotamia, with barley rations recorded on clay tablets thousands of years before coins existed. Cowrie shells circulated as currency across parts of Africa, Asia, and the Pacific for so long and so widely that some economists consider them the most geographically successful currency in human history, outlasting entire empires that tried to replace them. Here's the part that should stop you mid-scroll. All of these shells, cattle, grain, share one property that modern money doesn't. You can't fake them without enormous effort. And the moment you're caught faking them, everyone knows, because everyone's still watching everyone. Try passing off a chipped, poorly drilled shell as the real currency in a small trading network, and you're not committing a subtle white-collar crime. You're pulling a stunt in front of an audience that will remember your face for the rest of your life, and possibly the rest of theirs. Which brings us back to our sweating man by the fire. We don't have his name, We don't have his face, but we have something almost as good: the behavioral fossil record of what happens to cheaters in small, high-visibility societies, preserved in the customs of groups living under near-identical conditions today. Anthropologists studying contemporary hunter-gatherer bands, including groups like the Ache in Paraguay and various Kalahari communities, have documented consistent patterns when someone is caught free-riding, hoarding, or faking a contribution. It's rarely a quiet warning. It's public. Mockery, first pointed. Humiliating, designed to be witnessed by the whole group. If that doesn't correct the behavior, the response escalates. Exclusion from hunts, from food sharing, from the protective radius of the group itself. An exclusion in a world with no supermarkets, no spare shelter, no backup tribe 5 minutes away, isn't a social inconvenience. It's a slow-motion execution. A lone human on the Pleistocene landscape, cut off from the group's collective defense and collective food supply, was walking dead weight for predators and starvation both. Some anthropological accounts of small-scale societies go further still, documenting cases where repeated, unrepentant cheating, theft that endangered the group's survival, not just its feelings, ended in the ultimate penalty: execution, carried out by consensus. Because there was no jail to put you in and no fine that meant anything when the currency was trust itself. That's the twist worth sitting with. We think of the first financial crime as something soft, a shady deal, a bounce check. The actual first financial crimes in human history were treated with the same seriousness as murder. Because in a currency system made of reputation and reciprocity, cheating someone was functionally the same as trying to kill them slowly. You were stealing the resource that kept them alive. Now, here's where it gets personal, because this isn't ancient trivia sealed off in a museum case. This is still running underneath your ribs right now. That flush of heat you feel when someone finds out you lied about splitting a bill, or fudged a work report, or ghosted a friend who covered for you that isn't some modern social anxiety invented by group chats and read receipts. That's the same reputational alarm system that once meant the difference between staying in the group and dying alone outside the firelight. Your body doesn't know the stakes have changed. It still reacts like the whole tribe is watching, because for 95% of human history, it was. Think about how strange this makes modern money. We spent tens of thousands of years building currency out of things that were physically hard to fake and socially impossible to hide. Shells worn smooth from real use, cattle everyone could see and count, grain measured and logged by scribes on clay. Then, in the last few centuries, we built an entire global economy on the exact opposite principle. Numbers on a screen, backed by nothing you can hold, verified by institutions instead of your neighbor's memory. We essentially spent our evolutionary history perfecting a fraud detection system built on visibility, then built modern finance specifically to remove visibility. Credit card fraud, identity theft, phishing scams, these aren't new kinds of crime. They're old crimes wearing a disguise our ancient alarm system was never built to see through. The cheater by the fire could be caught by sundown. The cheater draining your account tonight could be on a different continent, and your gut, still calibrated for a 50-person tribe, has no idea he even exists. So maybe the real reveal isn't what ancient humans used instead of money. It's that they never separated money from morality in the first place. The two were welded together because currency was memory and memory was survival. We're the species that invented anonymous transactions, and it turns out that might be the single strangest, most unnatural financial habit our brains have ever had to learn to live with. For most of human history, every trade had a face attached to it. Yours didn't have that luxury of forgetting. Ours does, and some days it shows. The man by the fire never got his shells accepted. What he got instead was a lesson every human since has absorbed without ever being taught it directly. The oldest currency wasn't shell, salt, or cattle. It was being someone people could still trust by morning. Lose that, and no wallet, ancient or modern, was ever going to save you.